over the last 6 months, I've been working on a model of what the universe could look like from a geocentric point of view. Obviously, we've got the mainstream point of view, which is obviously very wrong in many ways, and possibly right in other ways as well, which I'm going to try and prove today. But the ancients, quite obviously, knew a lot more than we know today about these truths. So I used a method that I learned off Santos, the method of syncretism, to try and connect the dots and come up with a cohesive, geocentric universe that makes sense, at least. Of course, we'll never know the truth, the whole truth, naturally, in this state of consciousness. But I think we can certainly get as close to it as possible through syncretism and other means as well. So that's what I've done. I've syncretized mainly 4 avenues. I've syncretized Vedic scriptures, Kemetic Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, Norse mythology, a bit of the Bible, and a bit of the science we're taught today, mainstream science. There's a lot of truth in there. We just have to be able to decipher what they're telling us, but they are telling us quite a few truths, which I think might be a bit controversial in the flat earth community, but I'm sure my argument is going to be quite compelling, hopefully. Now I'm going to start. I'm going to start from the beginning. My presentation is based on the cosmic egg theory, the theory that our universe is inside an egg or a shell, which is actually a torus field. Okay, everything is toroidal. So I'm going to start from the beginning. Right. So in the beginning, all cultures and even mainstream science tells us that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, the void, emptiness, empty space. Today, science calls it infinite space, time, and matter. Okay. Past cultures also had names for this. The Greeks called it the chaos. The Norse called it the Gunning Gap. The Egyptians called it the noon. This is the void. This is everything and nothingness. This is the multiverse. Okay. I think there's no way to express it or to explain it in any words or level of consciousness that we have now. So we're going to try and use words that we can relate to at best. This space is intelligent, conscious, it is beautiful, it is divine, it is holy. So if I use certain words, they're not going to do this justice, whatever this is, this infinite space, time, and matter. This is the alpha, the omega, the beginning, and the end. Okay? So that was everything and nothingness, the void of infinite potential to begin with. At some point, this void decided to separate a part of itself to create and experience life outside itself, because it can. This is the nature of infinite potential, to use that potential. And the first creation, from our point of view, was what we know as the Holy Trinity, okay, which I've drawn there as the, you can see the Vesica Piscis there, you can see the flower of life. This is the first form of creation in our universe. Mainstream science today calls this the point of singularity or the great attractor. It's the same thing. Religion would call it the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, protons, neutrons, electrons, Zeus, Poseidon, and Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Many cultures called it different things. You'll find that the gods or the creators in all cultures always are in threes. They're always in threes. So 3 is the magic number of creation. Okay? So these are the building blocks of life. I prefer to call it electromagnetic pulses of sine wave or frequency, which is basically a star. This is the first star. This is God, the creator. We are all stars. Everything is atum, as Santos always says. Everything's a star. It's all It's all the same thing. We are stars. The sun that we look up at, in the sky is a star. The stars in the firmament are stars. God is a star. Creation is a star, right? At different frequencies, at different levels of consciousness, etc., etc. So we've got the Holy Trinity now. We've got the building blocks of life. The first order of business was to create a home or a hub or a shell where it would experience life separate from the whole. So obviously, remember, this Holy Trinity is still in the void. It's still in the infinite potential, but it needs to have its own world in order to create and experience life. And by the way, that Holy Trinity basically is where the meaning of life is. Before I move on, really important, okay? In Vedic cosmology, you've got Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, creator, sustainer, and the destroyer. And that is life. That is the cycle of life: birth, experience, and death. That is the blueprint of existence as we know it. Those are the three things we all know for certain. There's no debate. Everyone is born, everything's created, everything lives, and everything has to die and will die at some stage. So that's the first rule of creation, okay? And that is what this Holy Trinity is. And that's where it began. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Now, it is also worth mentioning that death is never permanent, okay? Death is never permanent. If we're all stars, like I've said, stars never die. Stars are energy. Energy goes and lives forever. So what we truly, truly are lives forever. However, the experiences that we have in their different forms have to die at some stage, which is what reincarnation is. So you are born in this body, in this life, in this age, at this time. You live and you experience whatever you're experiencing at that time, but that must die. That experience must die for you to experience something new, which is what reincarnation is, which is the point of life, because you have to learn from that, you grow from that, you move on. So that's the meaning of life. The meaning of life is creation, experience, growth, and moving on. And then it repeats itself. And you see that with everything. With a tree grows, it lives, it bears fruit or whatever, it dies, and then the next season it grows fruit again, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Energy never ever dies. So death, permanent death, does not exist and never will, because everything is energy, and energy is infinite. Like I've said, all this came from infinite space, time, and matter. Infinite, meaning forever. So there's no such thing as permanent death. Death is temporal, it's temporary. Okay, moving on. So they needed to create a world where they could express these three things: the cycle of birth, experience, and death. Because those things don't exist in the void, in the car, obviously, because that's infinite potential. So the first thing they built was this: a torus field, right? A shell, to shell themselves from the void, from the car. They're now independent, they're now separate, they're now experiencing life outside the whole. Okay? Now in that void, by the way, in the car, there are many, many other universes and many, many other expressions of experience that are different to us. So this is not unique. We're not the only shell or egg in the universe or in the multiverse. There are many, many of these, right? But this is ours. This is where we are, okay? So they created this egg, as many cultures called it. The Vedics called it the Brahmanda. The Norse mythology, they called it Ymir, the god Ymir. It was expressed through the god Ymir. In Greek mythology, it's the Orphean egg. In Kemetic Egyptian mythology, they called it the Apep, the serpent Apep. And it's always depicted as a snake or a serpent, which is energy. If you see a snake in ancient mythology, it's always expressing energy, okay? So this is the torus field, electromagnetic torus field that was built. And inside, you've now got primordial waters. It's empty. This is when the Big Bang happened. So when mainstream science says the Big Bang happened at the point of singularity, there's some truth in that. What they're not telling us is that that singularity And that process is a conscious, intelligent creation. It is not a random process. It's not something that happened randomly. It was intelligently designed. Again, that star is far more intelligent than we are. If we are a star, we are probably at 5% intelligence. This intelligence is at 100. Okay? Just to put it into context, that's obviously not accurate. But anyway, so now we've got a womb, right? This is the womb of creation. This is now the universe, our universe. Okay? Move on to slide number 4. The next bit was for these 3 entities to choose their domains, basically, in this universe. At the top, you've got Brahma, who's the creator. In the middle, you've got Vishnu, the sustainer, which is life. At the bottom, you've got Shiva, which is destruction, the destroyer. So now, the one is now divided into 3, okay? At the top, this is where that 33.333% comes in, the number 33. This is why it's so big in a lot of these cultures, number 33, because the universe is divided into 3 aspects. 33.33333 makes the whole, okay? So now we've got at the top, positive polarity, okay? The beginning, creation. In the middle, we've got life, sustenance, and experience. This is where the circle of life happens. And at the bottom, we've got the end, death, destruction, negative polarity, right? These 2 are gravity, okay? So when mainstream science says that gravity exists, it kind of does, but it's a transcendental gravity. It's not a physical gravity, it's transcendental, okay? You've got blue shift and red shift. If you've watched Santos's videos, he talks about that quite a lot, red shift and blue shift. This is where it begins. This is the original blue shift and red shift. Blue shift at the top, red shift at the bottom, okay? The next order of business was to create a cosmic highway, okay? Because at the moment, everything within this is closed off from the whole, from the multiverse, from all the other universes and all the other experiences outside this egg, okay? So a cosmic highway was created in the middle of this egg. To make it easier, if that's an egg, right? That is the cosmic highway going down through the center, okay? Connecting the outside multiverse, the void, the other universe with us inside here. We are now inside. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are inside this universe, right? Creating, experiencing, and destroying whatever they feel like creating, sustaining, and destroying, right? Okay? So that is what this is. This is a cross section, okay? So now we've got a cosmic vortex. This is what science calls the axis. Yep, the cosmic axis, okay? Many cultures called it many things. In Greek mythology, it was personified as the Greek god Elus, the keeper of the winds. In Vedic mythology, it's known as the Merudanda, okay? In Kemetic Egypt, it's Horus. I think it was a falcon, also keeper of the winds or something to do with the winds. In Norse mythology, they talk about the Bifrost Bridge. Same thing. This is the spine. This is a black hole, if you like. Sometimes science says the black hole in the universe. This is the black hole. This is the father and keeper of winds, energy, flow of weather, currents, everything starts from here. Starts from this energy in the middle. This is the engine room, right? Powering everything inside this cosmic egg, right? So now we've got that. So the next bit was to now put form to the universe, okay? So now we've established, we've got at the top, we've got blue shift, blue fire, okay? At the bottom, we've got red fire, red shift. These are both polarity, magnetism, okay? Different forms of magnetism, different modalities of magnetism, okay? In the middle, we now have the ether, okay? We've got air. At the bottom, we've got the water. In the Bible, they say God separated the waters above from the waters below. So the waters above are the atmospheres. The waters below are the actual waters below. Okay, in the middle is where earth comes in. Okay, this is where earth. The Kemetic Egyptians said in the middle, in the beginning, God created the Ben. And Ben translates to mound or pyramid. Okay, so a mound or a pyramid was created. This is Gaia in Greek mythology. It's Geb, Mother Geb in Kemetic Egypt. Same thing, right? So this tells me that this must be a pyramid of some sort, the earth originally, and probably still is today. Now you see those elements that we always talk about: earth, wind or air or ether, water, and fire, building blocks of life, right? These are the first physical building blocks of life in our universe, right? Earth, where we are, the air above us, atmosphere, the waters below us, and the fire would be the heavens and the hells, top and bottom, right? This is the Bhuloka in Vedic cosmology. Right, I'll try and, okay, let's go into detail, right? This Bhuloka, right? The Egyptians said it was the Ben, a pyramid. And I think it looks something like this, okay? As above, so below. So it's a pyramid at the top and a pyramid at the bottom, okay? Right? I think at the center here, at some stage, there was a capstone, right? Which I'll explain in a minute. At the moment, it's a crater, but I'll explain that in detail in a moment. Now, mainstream science tells us that our Earth has got three layers, three inner layers. There's a crust, a mantle, an inner core, and an outer core, right? But they tell us that this is on a spinning ball. I'm saying that it is not. What they're actually trying to tell us is that these are the four layers in the Ben. This is the cross section, by the way. Okay, and I'll show you what it is a cross section of. The crust, the mantle, the inner core, and the outer core inside the earth, which is basically this. This is the Ben. This is the earth, but this is the top half. So if you imagine this at the top, there's also a bottom bit, an upside down pyramid. Okay, and that is sitting on the great deep, on the waters below. And above, you've got the waters above, which are the atmospheres, right? So when they tell us that the earth has got three layers, a crust, a mantle, an inner core, and an outer core, that is inner earth, inside this Ben, the layer between the two pyramids. So there's some truth in that, okay? So I found that really interesting when I came across that, okay? The ancient cultures also talk about these, this Ben in quite a lot of detail, okay? The Egyptians called it Geb, Mother Geb. The Indo-Vedics, the Bhuloka, which is the land. In Greek, it was Mother Gaia. And in Norse mythology, it was Midgard, okay? The top of this also had names, okay? So the whole thing has got a name. In Kemetic Egypt, it's the Ben, right? But on the top, this is Mother Geb. If you're looking from the top, this was Mother Geb, okay? In Greek mythology, the whole thing is Gaia. But the top, as you see it with these concentric rings, is Atlantis or Atlas, okay? In Norse mythology, they just called it all Midgard, okay? They had one name for it. In Vedic cosmology or in Vedic scripts, they call the whole thing the Bhuloka, but the top is the Bhumandala. The concentric rings are the Bhumandala. Okay? It's also interesting that in Greek mythology, they said that Mother Gaia had two children. Okay? This is Mother Gaia, the whole thing, had two children. Who are the two children? The two children are the top part and the bottom part, Prometheus and Epimetheus. These are the two held below us. Okay? Right. I hope that makes sense. So I'll move on to the next slide. Right. Now that we established that this is what the whole Earth looks like, our entire Earth is a pyramid bhumandala with 4 concentric rings. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything is in 4s in the universe. Right? All creation is in 4s in the universe. Right? At the center, we've got what we now know as the Garden of Eden. So anyone who's been following our videos will know about this. The Garden of Eden's at the center. This is where we are here, the second ring. There's an outer ring and an outer ring outside that, all separated by these mountains, what we call the Antarctica ice wall. Okay, this is our South Pole, the Antarctica. And the North Pole, there is a mountain range separating us from the worlds at the center, from Eden, from Shambhala, Hyperborea. Okay? And outside, they've got their own wall separating from this. This last one has got the greatest one. It's called the Loka Loka Mountains in Vedic scriptures. These are the Loka Loka Mountains, the great, great mountains. Right? And these are the last mountains before the torus field, the cosmic egg. Okay? So beyond this, there is no land. It's the cosmic egg blocking us out from the void outside. Right? So let's focus on the center, on where we are and what that might look like. Okay? There's some really important bits. Okay. Around each of these 4 worlds is also in torus field. So remember, this is in a torus field. Each of these worlds also has its own torus field cocooning it. So there's a torus field around this outer world. There's a torus field around this one. There's a torus field around that one. And there's a torus field at the center. Okay? And what that would look like, essentially, is something like this. Okay? From our perspective, from where we are. Right? Almost like those Russian dolls. Right? So there's one at the center, a torus field like that. There's one on the outside, on the outer worlds, a bigger one. Then there's a bigger one on the outside. Right? Now, I noticed something very interesting about this. These toroidal fields, right, are probably oblate spheroids in shape. So when mainstream science or NASA says the Earth is an oblate spheroid, this is what they're telling us. They're kind of telling us a half-truth, right? Which is why they can blatantly lie with a straight face, because they know they're usurping the truth. And when it comes out, they'll just probably say, well, you're too stupid to understand what we're saying, but we're telling you the truth. So this is an oblate spheroid. Underneath where we are, this is where the 4 layers would be: the crust, the mantle, inner core, and outer core. Just like mainstream science says, right? Inner Earth. And above us, we've got the 3 atmospheres within our toroidal field. We've got the troposphere, the stratosphere, right? The mesosphere, and the thermosphere inside our torus field. This top bit is what mainstream science calls the Van Allen belt. This is the Van Allen belt, this toroidal field. Right? They tell us there's a field of energy that they cannot go past called the Van Allen belt. This is it. By the way, they also tell us that there are 5 Van Allen belts in the universe. So that's the 4 of the worlds, the 5th one being the outermost one. They also tell us that our universe is covered with cosmic background microwave radiation, which is basically a torus field. So they're telling us that the whole universe is inside a torus field. Cosmic background radiation, electromagnetism. So again, they're telling us the truths, but in a twisted way so that we don't figure out exactly what it is. Okay, so that is what it would look like from our perspective. Right, I also hypothesize that these toroidal fields have got different motions that they're moving at. Okay, so science tells us that the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour on its axis, yeah, and then it's spinning at 67,000 miles an hour around the sun, and then it's spinning at 490,000 miles an hour in the universe. Again, there is some truth in that. So it's not a complete lie. So the terra firma we're standing on is obviously not spinning, but the toroidal fields around us are spinning, okay? So I've depicted it here on this cross section, okay? So here, we've got the pyramid Bhumandala, we've got the toroidal fields going around each of the lands, over and underneath, right? 1 at the center, 2 where we are, 3 on the outside worlds, and the 4th one on the furthest out worlds, okay? Our toroidal field is probably moving at 1,000 miles an hour, that vortex. And this toroidal field, which is being powered, well, all of them are being powered by that cosmic vortex that we talked about in the beginning. This is the engine room that's powering the energy of all these toroidal fields, right? Because that runs straight through the middle, okay? So that's moving at 1,000 miles an hour on its axis, which is that axis, just like mainstream science tells us. The next toroidal field is moving at 67,000 miles an hour around our sun, which I'll explain why in a minute. And the outer one is moving in our universe at 490,000 miles an hour, the last one. So if these figures are true, and my syncretism is true, or it's close, then this is what I think that means. Okay? Right. The next bit is I want to focus on, give me a sec, guys. Where have I put it? Our torus field and our Earth, where we are. Okay, so that's a cross section of it, the one that I was showing you earlier on. So that is where we would be, the terra firma, the Earth, where we're standing here. This would be the lands at the center, Eden, with its torus field, which mainstream science tells us quite clearly it's an electromagnetic field. At the center, at the North Pole, there's an electromagnetic field, which is a torus field, powered by the sun, so they say. So they're telling us there's a torus field at the center, okay? And this is the Van Allen belt that they tell us about, right? And then we've got the 4 atmospheres: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, like I said earlier on. Underneath us is Earth, right? This is the ground, the crust, the mantle, inner core, outer core. And the waters and everything else sit above on the terra firma, okay? Right. Each of these lands with the 4 different toroidal fields has got a sun and a moon. All of the lands have a sun and a moon, okay? So, if we were to look at it like that, right? If that was the top of our toroidal field, from the top, this is where we live, okay? Our torus field, our sun and moon, is the sun and moon that we see every day, that revolves around our torus field. These outer lands have got their own sun and moon, which are Mars and Venus, okay? This outer land, they've got their own sun and moon as well, which is Saturn and Jupiter, the planets Saturn and Jupiter. The center is the only one that's an exception, because the sun and moon there are androgynous, and that's the planet Mercury. So Mercury is both a sun and a moon, okay, at the center. So now we've got the 7 wandering planets. Mercury at the center, inside the sun, like mainstream science tells us, right? You've got the moon, the sun, on the outside, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn being the last one. So, Saturn, Mars, and Apollo are suns, right? On the other side, you've got our moon, Venus, and Jupiter, which are moons. Okay, and they've got their respective duties or things that they do, which I'll explain a little bit later. Okay, so I'll try and put this together so you can kind of see what it looks like inside the egg. Okay. So now we have the universe. Okay. I don't know if you can see it properly. Hopefully you can. Let's put it down a little bit so you can see that. And here it is. Okay. That's the top of the Bhumandala. And this is the top half of all the torus fields. Of course, they run through the bottom as well, with the different suns and moons revolving around these torus fields in each of the lands. So, when NASA says they're going to Mars, and they plan to go to Mars, they are telling the truth. Mars are these outside lands, the outer lands, where Mars is the sun. Right? That is where Mars is. So they are planning to go to these outside worlds at some point. They're saying at the moment they can't get past the Van Allen belt, but at some stage they will be able to. And again, I'll explain why. Okay? So this is where Mars is. So outer space does exist. So all flat earthers out there saying that outer space doesn't exist, it does. But it's just been usurped. It's not physically going to Mars itself, the sun, Mars, the luminary. That's ridiculous. It's going to these lands where Mars is the sun. That's what they're trying to tell us. Okay? So I'm going to try and stay on track here. Sometimes I get a bit. So that's what the cross section would look like. Okay? You would have the Bhumandala over there, different toroidal fields, Mercury, androgynous at the center, Sun and Moon in ours, Mars and Venus in the outer one, Saturn and Jupiter on the outside, moons and the suns, Sun and Moon at the center. Okay? I think that the suns, Saturn, Mars, and our sun, they revolve. Show you. Okay? They spiral around these torus fields. Okay? Upwards and spiral outwards and down. That's what the sun does. I think the moon follows a linear orbit. I don't think it spirals. I think it just follows one orbit. Or if it does spiral, it's a much slower, slower orbit up and down. And I'll explain why again a bit later. But I think for sure the sun and moon, this is what creates our times, our seasons. When the sun is up here at the center, this is when the northern hemisphere have their summers, because the sun is directly above them, above the North Star, above Polaris at the center. When it's out here spiraling at the edges, this is when the people of the southern hemisphere have their summers. So let's just recap on what we've discussed so far, what we've established so far. We've established that our universe is inside a torus field, a giant torus field, what most ancient cultures refer to as the cosmic egg. Similar to this, right? This is the top half of the cosmic egg. And we live inside this torus field. We've also established that there is a cosmic vortex that runs through the center of this cosmic egg. This is the cosmic highway that links us with the multiverse on the outside. Okay? We've also established that on the inside, the Earth is pretty much flat, or it's a pyramid pyramid Bumandala, as I like to call it, that runs across the equator inside our torus field, okay, with 4 concentric rings of land, right? At the center, where the cosmic axis or the cosmic highway runs through, where we are, the second ring, the third ring, and the fourth ring, and the torus field on the outside, okay? We've also established that each of these worlds has its own toroidal field, okay? So torus field within a torus field within a torus field within a torus field. 5 in total. 4 on the inside, the 5th one being the outside one, the cosmic egg, okay? Right, we've established that each of these toroidal fields also has its own sun and moon. Saturn and Jupiter revolving around the outer torus field, Mars and Venus on the next toroidal field, Apollo and Artemis, or our sun and moon, on our torus field, but in the center there is only one androgynous sun and moon, which is Mercury on the inside, okay, on this torus field, the aurora borealis, okay, right. So we basically said it looks something like that, okay, torus field within a torus field, right, with all the suns and all the moons, okay, right. The next question, or the next natural question, would be, well, what's above these toroidal fields? Okay, above that, above all the toroidal fields, we've got something known as the firmament. Okay, this is where the stars are. This is what we see when you look up at the sky in the evening. All the stars and the constellations. This is the firmament that sits above the last inner toroidal field, the one that Saturn and Jupiter revolves around. Okay, so that will be the cosmic egg on top. In fact, I'll put it together so you can see it full scale on the model. Okay, please bear with me. Okay, so hopefully, okay, so that's what it looks like, right? This would be the firmament inside this torus egg, okay? The sky that runs across, okay? So it's almost like a dome, okay? So we're sealed off from these realms above, and I'll explain all that in a second, right? So when we're looking at it from underneath, when we're sat on the earth, we're seeing all the constellations revolving above us, okay? So pretty straightforward, really. So that's the firmament, okay? So this firmament on its axis, right, is revolving, okay? There's motion, everything's moving above us, but the terra firma we're standing on is obviously not moving, okay? So this axis is revolving, it's turning the firmament with all the stars and the constellations and everything else. In turn, it's also affecting the motions of these toroidal fields that are spinning around us, like we discussed earlier on. Those toroidal fields are also carrying the suns and moons around, which is causing our days and nights and seasons and times, okay? And that in turn, that motion is also creating our weather, our winds, our currents, flows, airstreams, everything else. So it's one big system working together. It's a network starting from the cosmic vortex, okay? So I hope that is clear enough, okay? So what that would look like is something like this, okay? Now, interestingly enough, okay, we talked about the planets. I suppose many people will be asking, what about Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, okay? So I think Uranus and Neptune are the two realms above, okay? So Uranus is the firmament above us. Why am I saying this? Well, Mother Gaia, we all know, is Earth in Greek mythology, okay? Gaia was married to Uranus, right? The planet Uranus, as they tell us, Uranus was named after Gaia's husband, Uranus. Uranus married to Uranus. These two are married, okay? They go hand in hand. Same thing with Kemetic Egyptian mythology, okay? You've got Mother Geb. She was married to the Egyptian god Nut. And Nut is always depicted as the sky, okay? So Uranus, Nut, Uranus, same thing. Okay. They also tell us that Uranus and Neptune are kind of planets, but they're exoplanets. They don't go in the same category as these 7 wandering stars. Okay. They put in a different category, and that's the reason why. Okay. Pluto the planet Pluto was named after the Greek god of the underworlds, and that's because Pluto is the firmament below us. As above, so below. There's a firmament above us, but there's also a firmament below us, okay? Below the Great Sea, the Great Deep, the Gabadoka Ocean, as the Vedics called it, okay? So that tells me syncretically that there is a firmament and what the firmament is, and that shows you how I've come to that conclusion, okay? Above that, you've got Neptune. Neptune was named after the keeper of the waters, okay? Which waters? The waters above and the waters below, okay? So Neptune is the keeper of the waters. This is the next realm. By the way, these realms above the firmament are very transcendental. We cannot go to these planets naturally. We all know that, okay? These are luminaries. These are suns and moons. We can't go to the suns or the moons, okay? Outer space does exist, like I said. It's beyond these Van Allen belts and these lands beyond. This would be outer space, okay? Definitely, we cannot go up here. This place is very, very transcendental. It's spiritual. You can only go there as a soul or a spirit or a star. All the same thing, okay? This is the only time you can go up there, and I'll explain all that in a minute, okay? So mainstream science tells us that there is Uranus, Neptune, and I'll explain how the heavens work. So there are 4 heavens and there are 4 hells. In fact, the Vedics say there are 7 heavenly realms and 7 hellish realms. Again, we'll go through that in a second. So mainstream science tells us that there's the Milky Way galaxy, Andromeda galaxy, and the Omega galaxy, and then the point of singularity. Okay, this is where Polaris is. Polaris is right at the top, okay? Right in the center of the axis, the cosmic axis. Right, everything is spinning around Polaris, just like we witness with our eyes. When you look up at the North Star, Polaris, you see all the stars are revolving, yeah, around Polaris, okay? Polaris is Brahma, the creator. This is Big Brother. So when you see that triangle with the eye that these elites show us, this is what they're trying to tell us, that Big Brother is watching, okay? Unfortunately, they're twisting it and usurping it and making it very occult. It shouldn't be an occult thing. This is something everyone should know, okay? This is Big Brother. This is our father. This is Brahma looking out for us, basically. Okay? So, right. Let's see what mainstream science says before we move on about the universe. So mainstream science tells us that we've got the 7 planets, right? We've got Uranus. In fact, they're saying the beginning was the Big Bang, the point of singularity, okay? This is where the Sirius star system is, so they tell us. But they make it very, they try and make it like it's a physical thing. But these places are very much transcendental. They're not physical places. These are spiritual, very higher divine. They, you know, we shouldn't try and debase it and make it sound very, very simplistic, because it's not. It's extreme. It's way beyond our comprehension. But I'm just going to try and relay it the way we're taught in schools, okay? The Big Bang, point of singularity. This is where everything begins. The next galaxy is Omega Centauri, okay? Below that is the Andromeda Galaxy. Below that is the Milky Way or Uranus, the firmament. And then we've got all our wandering stars below that. That's what mainstream science says, okay? And Pluto at the bottom. Pluto is always an exoplanet. They debate about whether Pluto is a planet or it's not. Do we count it, don't we? And this is why. Because Pluto is the firmament below us. Okay? Right. Let's have a look at what the Vedics say about our cosmology. So the Vedics go into a lot more detail, right? The Vedics say there are 7 heavenly realms and there are 7 hellish realms, okay? The top realm is called Brahma Loka or Satya Loka. Like we said, point of singularity, where everything began, the North Star, God, this is the Holy Trinity, this is where they all began, this is where everything started, like I keep saying. The next round down, they called the Tapaloka, okay? Right? The next round down is the Yana Loka, and then the Mahaloka, right? Or the Sphaloka, Spha as in stars, okay? This is now the firmament that we're showing with all the stars and the constellations, what we see when we look up, okay? They call this axis mundi, or where this point meets, the Dhruva, okay? This is where this is where we see the skies meeting with the cosmic axis or the pole star, the Dhruva, okay? This is the Meridanda that runs through the cosmic axis, okay? And then they name all the different stars. They call Saturn Sanaisuru. They call Jupiter Brahaspati, Mars Mangal, Venus Sikuru, our sun Surya, our moon Chandra, and Mercury at the center, Buddha. Buddha, why Buddha? Buddha the messenger, okay? Buddha was the messenger of God. I'm going to explain why that is important and why Buddha is the messenger at the center. That's very important. They then tell us that there is a Bhuloka, okay? Bhu world, the world of earth, Bhu, and this is the Bhu Mandala, okay? The earthly plane, right? With the 4 concentric, they tell us they're concentric rings of land on the Bhu Mandala, okay? And they name all these different lands, which I won't go into right now, but we'll do that for another video, okay? So these are now the 7 heavenly realms, the Varthis, they call them, okay? By the way, they split this egg into 3 as well, right? The Swag Lokas, the heavens, the Bhu Lokas, the middle realm, and the Bata Lokas, the hellish realms, okay? So now we've got 7 on top. What are the 7 below? The 7 below are the first part of inner earth. So remember we said there are 2 parts of inner earth. Gaia, Mother Earth, had 2 children, Prometheus and Epimetheus, okay? So Atala Loka is the first part of inner earth. I think this is where all the tunnels are. I'll explain that in a second anyway. The next realm would be the Vitala Loka, okay? That's the next hellish realm. Below that, you've got the Sutala Loka, which is the great deep in the Gabadoka Ocean, the great ocean, the turtle. We always see it depicted in many ancient depictions of the earth, the flat earth, sitting on a turtle. This is the turtle. This is what that means. The turtle is the great ocean below us that the earth is sitting on. It's not an actual turtle like people say. It's the great ocean. Below that, we've got the 4 hellish realms. The Talatala Loka, the Mahatala Loka, the Rasatala Loka, and the Patala Loka. And then you've got Shiva in hell, so to speak. Okay? So that's the 7 hellish realms. 7 heavenly realms, 7 hellish realms. So the Vedic scriptures go into a lot of detail. They even go into figures, how big this Bhumandala is. They say it's 8 billion miles across, 8 billion kilometers across. Okay? They give so much detail for those who want to read into that and study that. Let's look at what the Norse said about the universe. Okay? So the Norse also divided it into 3. They've got Valhalla or Asgard, which are the heavenly realms. Okay, they've got Midgard, Middle Garden. This is where we are. Okay, and then they've got Helem, which is the hellish realms below us. Okay, So they've got Valhalla, where Thor is, where Odin is, sorry, abode of Odin. Okay. You've got Gimle, the three realms, Gimle, Valhalla, and Himmelborg. These are the three heavens that they talk about. These three up here. The fourth one being the abode of Odin. Okay. And then you've got the Alfheim realm. Okay. Alfheim, I think they called it the realm of the little elves. Little elves referring to the stars, because that's what they saw. When they saw the lights in the sky, they called them the little elves. This is Alfheim. Okay. They're named, and of course you've got the Bifrost Bridge. Okay. As in the Cosmic Highway, Bifrost Bridge. Self-explanatory. Right. They named all the planets. They named Saturn, Woden, Jupiter, Frigg. These were named after gods. Mars, Tyre, Venus, Freya, the sun, Suna, our moon, Mani. Okay? And then they named Mercury, Hermod, was also a god of a messenger of some sort. Again, that is very important. That messenger is very important. Of course, these all had their roles. The most common ones are obviously the messenger and Saturn, time. Saturn's always associated with time, Father Time. And I'll explain exactly why that is in a minute as well. Okay? The Norse also described these lands in great detail. Okay? They called this whole part Midgard, the Middle Garden, but they also called the crater continent. I'll show you. They also call the crater continent at the center Midgard, the Middle Garden, right in the center. Okay, so where Eden, where Shambhala is, that's Midgard. Okay, as you can see, right? Below that, they called Inner Earth, inside the Pyramid Bumandala, the realm of the Svartalem. Okay, Svartalem meaning realm of stone spirits or dark spirits. I'm sure you can decipher what that means yourselves. Okay, and then you've got Aiga, which is the great deep, mother of the great deep, mother of the great oceans. And then you've got the realm of Loki, the bad guy, right? Loki at the bottom, Helem, right? So these Nordics, the Norse, they describe these lands in very great detail. Midgard at the center, the Middle Garden, naturally, okay? This is Vanaheim, the land of the Vanir. Vanir referring to children of God, okay? The gods in Asgard at the top were called the Aesir gods, the gods of the gods. The gods, where we are, the Vanir, were children of the Aesir gods. So they considered the beings that live here to be children of the Aesir gods, of the gods of the gods. Vanaheim. It's interesting because where I come from, in Africa, in Zimbabwe, the Shona word for children is Vana. So I was trying to decipher what Vanaheim was. I couldn't figure it out. Okay, so I used etymology, again, something that I've learned from Santos and syncretism. And I connected the dots. Well, Vanir, Vana, children. Vanir were children of the gods. Vanaheim, land of the children of gods. Vanaheim. And that's how I came to that conclusion. They then tell us there's a place called the Nephilim, okay? The realm of frost and ice, okay? This is the Nephilim, the ice wall. This is what they call the Nephilim, okay? And beyond that is where the Jutoinim live. Beyond the Nephilim is the land of the Jutoinim, the frost and ice giants, so they call them. So we see in a lot of mythology, they talk about the Nephilim, fallen angels, right? In the Bible, it talks about the Nephilim, fallen angels, right? Well, you can connect the dots yourself, you know, how that's all linking with the Bible. Norse mythology and the Bible, connecting right there. Beyond that, they say there is the Muspelem, okay? Muspelem, the land of the fire giants, or the fire demons, whatever that means, okay? So you've got Midgard, Vanaheim, the Nephilim, ice wall, Jutoinim, beyond the Nephilim, and Muspelem, okay? Underneath that is where you've got Svartalem, like I said earlier on, the realm of the stone giants, okay? Or the dark giants. Oh, not stone giants, the stone dwarfs, or dark spirits, inner earth, okay? This is where maybe you get a lot of conspiracy theorists or alternative researchers who talk about The reptilians, perhaps this is where they come from, these reptilians that we're always talking about, from inner earth, inside the Bhumandala, or possibly from the great deep, who knows, right? Doesn't really matter at this point. Okay? I could do the same thing with Norse, or with the Greek. I syncretized the Greek as well. The Greek, Uranus, like I said, Uranus. Uranus was married to Gaia, right? You've got Zeus at the top. You've got Hera, who was Zeus's wife, so that's the next round. You've got Poseidon. You've got Polos, which is the North Star, and Zeus. They named the planets. They named this the ether, by the way. They actually named it the ether, right? They named the planets. Saturn was Kronos. Jupiter was named after Zeus, so Jupiter is Zeus as well. Mars is Aries. Venus is Aphrodite. Our sun was Apollo. Our moon was Artemis. And then you've got Hermes, the messenger, again at the center. Kronos for the time, Hermes the messenger. Okay, Kronos is first, time. Hermes is the last one, the messenger. All of these also had their own different roles and their own different things. Okay, then you've got Mother Gaia with the two children, Prometheus and Epimetheus. Okay, and then at the top, you've got Atlantis. This top bit is Atlantis, the concentric rings of Atlantis. The center, as you notice, is a crater continent now. Okay, this is the sunken continent of Atlantis. This is where that myth comes of the sunken continent. Remember earlier on I said, I think there was a capstone. Okay, I think this land was not always a crater, but something happened for it to become a crater. It was actually above, so it was a proper pyramid. Interestingly enough, if you look at the pyramids in Egypt, yeah, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, it's missing the capstone at the top. I think that's symbolical. The ancients were trying to tell us something. Okay, so if you go to Egypt and you look at the biggest pyramid, I forgot what it's called, the capstone is missing. On our pyramid on the earth, the capstone is also missing. Okay, interesting. It's now a crater. So they were telling us something there, right? Back to this, okay? And then you've got Pontus, below Mother Gaia. You've got Pontus, who was the keeper of the seas. And then you've got Hades, right? In Tartarus. They call Tartarus hell, and Hades resides in Tartarus. Okay? So that's Greek mythology, right? And then the chaos on the outside. You could do the same thing with the Egyptians, okay? Right? The Egyptians, you've got Amun at the top, right? Amen, Amun, God at the top, the creator, right? You've got Neith, his wife. You've got Hathor. You've got Nut, who's married to Gaia, okay? The husband of Mother Geb, not Gaia, Mother Geb. So Geb and Nut are husband and wife. The firmament above us and the earth below us, okay? They also named all the stars, all the wandering stars, okay? Saturn, now this is quite controversial. This is just my own secret. This is not confirmed. This was just me coming up, trying to decipher it myself. It could be wrong. If someone can correct me, that'd be great. But I think Osiris is Saturn. That's Osiris, okay? Isis is Jupiter, okay? Deshir, for sure I know, is Mars. Sekhmet, again for sure I know, is Venus. Ra, for sure I know, is our sun, Ra. I think everyone knows that. And Khonsu is the moon, okay? And then you've got Thoth, for sure I know, again, messenger, okay? And then you've got Horus, the god Horus, keeper of the winds. Which winds? These winds. The toroidal field, the toroidal fields around the earth. These are the winds. So when they say this is the keeper of the winds, these are the winds that it's keeping, okay? By the way, you read in the Bible and in other scriptures, they talk about the four corners of the earth. These are the four corners of the earth, okay? The four realms are the four corners. The four winds, they talk about the four winds in the Bible. Which are the four winds? The four Taurus fields. These are the four winds talked about in the Bible, okay? And then below that, the Egyptians, the Kemetic Egyptians, they called the great deep Mother Sobek. Sobek, the keeper of the waters, okay? And then you've got Atum, the tomb, right? At the bottom, okay? And that is Kemetic Greek universe inside the cosmic egg. Okay? Right. So let's move on to the next bit. Okay, we've established okay, let's talk about the ages. Okay, in particularly in the Indian cultures, they talk about the 4 ages. Okay, these are ages of consciousness. So everything is cyclical in life. You know, there are peaks and troughs. There are times when consciousness is up, and there are times when consciousness is down. For all the beings that live on the Bhumandala, there are different beings, different races, different nationalities, all along this Bhumandala. Okay, so this is what we might call aliens beyond our ice wall. We might call these aliens, but they are beings just like we are beings here. And they will call us aliens as well. So aliens do exist, and outer space does exist. But it's not like we've been told, or you know, that it's on the planets. It's on the lands beyond. Okay? So, this is really important. Really, really important. I need to explain this. The ages. Okay? So, the Indians talk about the 4 ages, okay? The Kali Yuga, the Dwapara Yuga, the Treta Yuga, and the Satya Yuga, right? The bronze, no, the iron, the bronze, the silver, and the golden age. These are ages of consciousness, okay? These ages are determined by many things. They're determined by the constellations above us, right? In Greek mythology, these would be the gods. Everything above in these realms, these are the gods and goddesses that look after us, the big brothers and big sisters, okay? The suns and the moons that revolve around us, these were called the Olympians. These are the demigods that look after us subconsciously, okay? They determine the ages. And we, on the earth, on the Bhumandala, we are all the titans, okay? The soldiers that are living out the whole script of the whole thing. So all of this is a stage, okay? We are on the main stage. We are we're on the stage of creation on the Bhumandala, okay? And these are the directors, if you want to think of it in movie terms. These are the ones directing the scripts and the programs, right? There is free will, I'm saying that, but don't think that we don't have free will. We do have free will, but on a grand scheme, there is a script within that narrative. Otherwise, you'd just be crazy to be chaotic. There has to be a cycle, there has to be order to all of this. None of this is just random and chaotic. There's an order, there's a cycle, there's a system to all of it. Okay? So, interesting enough, I noticed something very, very interesting, right? These toroidal fields, the Van Allen belts that are around all the Earths, okay? These are constantly growing, expanding, and contracting. Okay, this is what creates our ages. In the Vedic scriptures, they talk about a 26,000 year cycle of consciousness. Every 26,000 years, we shift within that 26,000 years from the iron to the golden age. So every 6,400 and whatever years, we go from one age into another. Okay, and even within that, there are ages, which are what we call the zodiacal ages, the age of Aquarius, the age of Aries, the age of all the zodiac constellations, and those are all conscious ages. So there are smaller ages within bigger ages within bigger ages. Okay, so everything is cyclical. Okay, so there's a 26,000 year cycle, and then within that there's a 6,400 year cycle. Within that there's a 2,100 year cycle. Okay, we've just come out of the age of Pisces, which was the whole Jesus thing, fish, Pisces. We're now going into the age of Aquarius, the water bearer. Okay, Aquarius is technology. Aquarius is coming together. Aquarius is the mixing water. Aquarius is always a man or a woman pouring water, pitcher of water, mixing the waters. This is now where things are now being mixed. Knowledge is coming out. Technology. This is the age of Aquarius. Okay, this is where we are now, right? So these toroidal fields, the Van Allen belts, the aurora borealis and all that, they have a significance in that. So we're at a very, very special point at the moment, right? Because we're shifting, we're approaching a 6,400 year cycle shift, which also coincides with the 2,100 year cycle. So not only are we shifting consciously, like we did in the last shift during the age of Jesus or Pisces, we're now shifting physically. Like I said, these toroidal fields are expanding and contracting. During the golden age, there are no toroidal fields inside our universe. Okay, let me find a proper one, just so we can see it properly. Okay, there are no torus fields in our universe in the golden age. Everything's connected. We are at the peak of consciousness everywhere in the universe. Yeah, it's the golden egg. Okay, all these toroidal fields expand outwards over time. It's almost like the cosmic egg is breathing in and out. The womb of creation breathes in and breathes out, breathes in and breathes out. And these toroidal fields follow that breath created by the axis mundi. Okay, so when God, okay, is breathing in, okay, Brahma, this is when the torus fields are spreading out. This is over thousands of years. And breathing in, the torus fields close again. We're now in the dark age. Out and in. At the moment, we are ascending. We're on the upward cycle. Okay? So the torus fields are expanding. This is what is causing this conscious awakening that is happening at the moment. This is why we are consciously waking up at the moment. Because we are picking up the frequencies, okay, of this toroidal field at the center, the aurora borealis, coming from the messenger, okay, the demigod Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, Buddha, at the center. Remember, everything's interlinked. They tell us, mainstream science, at the center, in the magnetosphere at the North Pole, there is an electromagnetic field that's being affected by the sun. Which sun? This sun, the black sun of intent, Rahu. This is it at the center. So the frequencies we're picking up subconsciously that are creating this awakening that we're all talking about, the vegan movement, the flat earth movement, people just questioning government, you know, what's happening with Trump, with everything, all this craziness. People are now becoming more aware. Before, we never questioned. We just followed whatever we're told by governments. Now we are questioning things a lot more. Why? We're getting more intelligent. We're waking up. What's waking us up? It's this energy that is growing out of Eden, out of this torus field, and heading towards the outer bits. So we're heading towards the golden age. We're now coming out of the dark age. In the dark age, all of them are closed in. As we head towards the golden age, they open up, until they are assimilated into the outermost, into the egg. And there's nothing. And then everything grows back again, and we descend back into the dark ages of consciousness. Everything is closed off again, including our minds, physically and metaphysically, spiritually and mentally. Okay? So, likewise, the toroidal field around where we are, around here, is also spreading outwards. It's also opening up. Okay? So you hear NASA, they were telling us, or mainstream science, for a long time they were worried about the ozone layer opening at the North Pole, okay? Which would bring an end, which would be the end of the world, which would destroy the world, the ozone layer. Well, there's some truth in that. The ozone layer is this torus field growing out. And it will destroy the world, but not physically, metaphysically. It will destroy the paradigm. A new age will come in. That's the apocalypse they're worried about. Their paradigm, these elites that run the world, they're worried that their age of ruling over the masses will end. And it is ending because people are waking up. We're questioning now, right? We're not just following. We're now researching and thinking for ourselves, okay? Because the ozone layer is opening up, okay? This torus field is growing at the center. And we are picking up the frequencies. Well, most of us, some of us. Not everyone will. This happens really slowly. Okay, there's a process to it. It can't happen in an instant. It has to happen slowly and gradually. Some will pick this up a lot quicker than others. Some are waking up quicker than others. Some need time. Some won't wake up. Some will die asleep, and that's fine, and they'll reincarnate, and they might wake up in the next reincarnation. Okay, and likewise. So this outer field is also expanding, okay? The Van Allen belt. They're telling us that very soon they'll be able to leave the Van Allen belt. They're very excited about going to Mars. They were saying that we can't leave the Van Allen belt, but soon humans will be able to leave the Van Allen belt, okay? And that's because the frequency is changing, A, and B, the Van Allen belt is growing outwards as well, okay? So there'll be holes in this ozone layer as well, right? So this is a very special time for everyone on this Bumandala. I think the people out here, or the beings out here, they're also having their own conscious shift of some sort, right? Some of them will probably be getting ready to come in, the good ones, and the bad ones will be getting ready to go outwards. Because in is always good. You want to go in and up rather than out and down, which I'll explain in the next video. Okay? So this is what's happening. This is the conscious shift that is currently taking place, right? We need to be picking up these frequencies, and we need to be aware of what's happening, okay? In the Bible, by the way, it talks about the North Star. There's the story of the birth of Jesus Christ, right? And the three kings were told that when you see the North Star in the sky, that is what you should follow. Follow the North Star, and that North Star will lead you to where Christ is, where Christ is being born. Okay, so that story is an allegory of what's happening now, right? Our ancestors, or we, were trying to tell our future selves something, because we've already reincarnated thousands of times. So our ancestors are us, okay? The North Star, in this case, is the messenger of God, Buddha, Hermes. Okay, when you see the North Star in the sky, follow Christ consciousness at the center. This is where Christ is being born. Right? So eventually this whole thing will be golden age, but it starts from the center. Okay? It's spreading from the center outwards. So those who are not in this frequency, are not in this journey, they will run away from this frequency. Okay? They want to go as far away from it. These elites, they want to go to Mars. They're running away from this divine frequency because they are not, it's not their soul path, it's not their journey. And I'll talk about that in the next video. Okay? Those of us who are ascending, who are on the way up on the cycle, we are picking up these frequencies and we are being drawn to there. Some are not being drawn anywhere. They're not feeling any of this. They are meant to carry on playing the game on this stage here. They've not learnt enough. They're not ready to move on either way, in or out, right? They are meant to carry on the paradigm here, the new world order here. Okay? The new age. Okay, and hopefully it will be a good one, and I think it will, because we're ascending consciously. Right? Next, I want to talk about reincarnation and the cycle of life. Okay, so this is now more metaphysical. Okay, I can't prove any of this. I'm not saying it's absolutely true, but this is my understanding and perspective, based on what I've researched, and what I feel, my knowledge, and you know. It could be wrong. If people can correct me, that's fine. If people resonate with it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Okay? So, remember earlier on I said that we're all stars. Everything is a star. And we are all reflections of God. Every single one of us. Everything that is conscious is a fragment of the whole. The whole being Brahma at the top. Okay? God. So we are drops in the ocean of consciousness. Okay? So in the beginning was the Holy Trinity at the top, okay? And they birthed many, many souls, including you and me right now, okay? We are souls birthed out of the whole, out of God. It tells us in the Bible, God breathed air into Adam, right? So that air is consciousness, okay? That is what consciousness is. The Holy Spirit, that is what we are. We are Holy Spirits. Everything is a star. All is a tune. All is a moon, as Santos always says. So, this is where we were. Remember, we're talking about the different realms, the 14 different realms that the Vedics talk about, okay? And this is where the cycle of life happens, and this is how the cycle of life happens. So first, you're one with the whole. You are there born or created as a soul, individual soul, you then become a fallen angel. So you experience independentness for the first time in this top realm, which is, let me get this correct, okay? Which is the Tapaloka in Vedic cosmology. This is where you experience your first life as a single soul, as an individual soul, right? You then go into the Yanaloka, right? You become a fallen angel again, right? You then go into the Mahaloka, you're a fallen angel again. And all this time, you're falling in consciousness as well, okay? So the further you are from source, the further down your consciousness is falling, okay? Right? And up here, you're still in the heavens. You're still an angel, but you're becoming a fallen angel, like it says in the Bible, okay? Once you leave the Mahaloka, the stars, once you leave the skies, you're no longer an angel now. You're now in time. This is where time comes in. Chronos, Saturn, Father Time, Sine Suru, Father Time. This is the first place you incarnate into. You incarnate into the planet Saturn. You then become a demigod, right? As the Greeks put it, right? You're now influencing, yeah? You're now a director, you know, of the Titans. We are the Titans on Earth, okay? So you do your time in there. You then reincarnate down to the next sun, which is Mars, okay? You're now influencing the beings on those lands where Mars is. And then you incarnate into the next one, which is our sun, Apollo. You're influencing the beings where we are. So right now in the sun, there are beings that are influencing us. So you hear this movement about people saying, I'm sun gazing. Okay, I look up in the sun and I sun gaze and I meditate and whatever. That's because you're communicating with the beings right now, the souls in the sun, subconsciously. That is what prayer is. That is what meditation is. You are trying to connect with souls in all these other realms, mainly in the suns. Okay? From the sun, your next incarnation is into Buddha, Hemrod, into Mercury. Okay? You're now a messenger. Okay? You're getting ready to deliver the message from the demigods to the Titans. Okay? At this point, you're now maybe at 65% consciousness. Okay? You're now ready to descend into the physical. Right? And once you're in the physical, this is when you forget now. This is where we will now have the amnesia, because now you're on the stage of creation. You're now truly an actor, acting out the directives and the ages and everything else. You're now experiencing your own simulation, as well as the collective one of wherever you are. So your first incarnation is into Shambhala, Eden. This is where you first become a fallen angel. You do your time in there, right? And after a while, you either reincarnate or sometimes physically, depending on the ages, but mostly you reincarnate into where we are, okay? And you now become a human being like we are now, okay? So these elites that are ruling us, these are fallen angels, and I think some of them are also beings from the underworld that are influencing us at the moment in the dark age for now. So these fallen angels, some of these elites that are ruling us, okay, this is why they've been a lot more intelligent than most of us for a while, okay, because they're fallen angels. They're coming from the center going outwards, okay, right? And we are going the other way, but the scales are balancing, right? We're getting to a stage where we're going to be balancing the scales very soon. Well, we are already. We're catching up. They are falling in consciousness. We are rising in consciousness, the rest of us, most of us, the good ones. Okay, so once you've done your time here, you reincarnate many times through the moon. Okay, the moons are processing centers or reincarnation realms where when your soul dies, you go into the moons, you assess yourself. No one judges you. You're not judged by anyone. You assess yourself and you come back and you work out your karma or whatever you need to work out. Because remember, the meaning of life is birth, experience, growth, and move on. So if you haven't learned enough and you haven't grown enough, you must come back down and play again. Work out your karma and learn as much as you can before you can move on to the next stage. Okay? These beings, because they're fallen angels, okay, they automatically will be drawn to the worlds outside. Okay, because they're going outwards and downwards. This is why these elites, right, the governments, they're obsessed with going to Mars, the outer lands. They're going outwards. Okay, they're on their way out and down, right? Right, these worlds are not necessarily hellish, as in hell. I don't think so. But I think they're disconnected from nature and from source. There's a difference between intelligence and intellect. So there might be a lot of intellect out here, technology, cities with amazing technology out here, but not so much knowledge, gnosis, okay? They're disconnected from nature and from things of transcendental things, spiritual things. Everything out here is very artificial, which is what you're seeing at the moment. They're preparing us. Everything is becoming very artificial. Robots, food, money, everything is becoming more and more artificial. Okay, there's this big AI movement happening at the moment. So the beings on the way down are attracted to these things, these artificial things. Okay, I'm not saying it's evil. I'm just saying that is your soul path or their soul paths. And then after that, your next stage will be the outer lands. Okay, Muspelem, the fire giants, whatever that means according to the Norse. After that, 40%, you're now in inner earth. You're now a reptilian, so to speak, inside the first part of the Bhumandala. Okay? I think the underside of the Bhumandala, I don't think this is a physical place you can go. This is when you will reincarnate as a spirit again. You're now a spirit. You don't have a physical body, but you're a dark spirit now. Okay? Now you're a devil. You're a Shiva. You're a destroyer. Up here, you're a creator. Down here, you're a destroyer. So you're trying to gravitate people, right? You're influencing people up here as well, subconsciously, right? When they say that the devil has influenced you, these are the beings, the beings out in these worlds down here, trying to subconsciously influence you. All your bad thoughts, all your negative thoughts are coming from the frequencies from these beings under here. You then get to 30%, 25%, 20%, 15%, 10%. There's hardly any light left in you. Okay? You're now truly, a fallen angel in the truest sense of the word. Okay? But then you work your way back up again. Once you're down here, right, the cycle of life, you can't be here forever. You've got to come back up again. But this is all happening over millions or thousands of years or whatever. Okay? You then come back up again, 15, you are ascending. You're now becoming a shooting star. You're shooting back upwards. Okay? You go through all the different rounds again, the reverse. You're here, then you're here, and then you incarnate where we are, okay? And then you get to the center. So those of us who are being drawn to goodness, to love, to truth, right? Those of us who are trying to change things for the better, okay? We are shooting stars. We are ascending, right? On the cycle of life. We're on our way up. And we're meeting in the middle with those descending. So you've got the good guys and the bad guys. And this is necessary for the cycle of life. This is duality. This is polarity. Good and bad. It has to happen. Fallen angels and shooting stars. Okay? Now remember, I put the suns on this side and the moons on this side. I did that deliberately. Okay? Except for that one is a sun and the moon. Okay? So when you're ascending, when you're way out, the moons, the mothers, are portals out. The suns are gateways in. So those descending come through the sun. Those ascending go through the moon. Okay? Males inseminate. Females give birth. Okay? If you can see, this looks like a brain, the cosmic egg. With the center, right? You've got the left-hand path, male principles. Right-hand path, female principles. Okay? This is where all that esoteric stuff comes in. For those who are not afraid to research that and to try and understand it. Okay? So this is where you come out from the moon side. So you incarnate here, or in this case, we're going through a very special time. We can actually physically walk into the Garden of Eden. Okay? But we have to pick up these frequencies for those who want to make the pilgrimage. Not everyone will want to do this or can do this. But those who are ready to ascend, those who have learned everything they need to learn, right? At the center, here where we are, There are those who are ready to move on to the next stage of life. Some need to incarnate, like I was saying, a few more times before they can move on. Okay? Others are ready to move on to the garden, to the center, to the next stage. I've done my time here. I feel like I need to move on. Okay? I need something new. I need a new experience. So this is where veganism comes in, or vegetarianism. This is where truth, love, and all those things come in, the garden. Disconnecting from artificial, trying to connect with nature, sun gazing, loving animals and nature and all that. You're preparing yourself for the garden. You have to prepare yourself. Because if you don't, you cannot be able to withstand the frequencies here, because the frequencies in this dimension are much, much, much higher. Okay? So if you want to make the physical pilgrimage here, you need to be prepared. Okay? Because if you don't, you will just get, your body and your soul will not, you get zapped and you'll just reincarnate back here again, back to square one. You'll die on your way there. Okay? Because the Van Allen belt, the frequencies there, you will not be able to withstand them. So those of us, you hear me talking a lot about this pilgrimage to the North Pole. Follow the North Star when the time is right. I'm going to make a little prediction. I know they say you should never put dates or make prophecies, but I am. I'm going to say Vision 2020. 2020, I think this Aurora Borealis or Van Allen belt will be high enough for us to see the North Star, for us to see Mercury. This is Planet X that they talk about. This is planet Nibiru. They say that comes around every 26,000 years to destroy the world. This is it. But it's not a physical destruction. It's a metaphysical destruction, a new age. Okay? So when the time comes, and I think 2020, those who see the North Star and want to make the pilgrimage, not everyone, okay? If you don't want to, you don't have to. Your next incarnation could be in there. You can stay here and stay for a bit longer, and when you ascend or when your body dies, your soul can ascend into there and reincarnate into there. But I certainly feel like I want to make a physical pilgrimage when the time is right. Okay, when the time is right, we will make a mass pilgrimage and we'll know. It also says in the Bible that Christ will come like a thief in the night. Okay, what's Christ? Christ is the energy, Christ consciousness, the energy coming from this toroidal field at the center, from the messenger of God. That's Christ. That's coming like a thief in the night. I had my awakening last year, right? Overnight, like most people. One day I was on a spinning ball, I was eating meat, I was, following money. Something happened to me, my life changed. I realized where we are. We're not on a spinning ball. I changed my eating habits, etc., etc. My life changed. I became a better person. Okay? Christ got me. Christ consciousness came to me like a thief in the night. I wasn't expecting it, and it just happened. And I'm sure many watching this now have had a very similar experience. Okay? So this is where we are. Right? So, once you're there, you live out your life in the Garden of Eden. Okay? This is a very natural place. There's no technology. Well, there is technology, but it's more of a natural technology. It's a different type of technology. It's not artificial. Okay, nature has got magic. Magic exists, believe it or not, but I won't go into that now. It does exist. So the technology out here is a magical type of technology. It's not artificial like out here. Okay? So this place is not just sitting and gardening and doing nothing. There's a lot going on there. It's a beautiful place, the Garden of Eden. Okay? But you must be at the right frequencies. There's no hate there. There's no bad frequencies. Well, there is, but there is less. There's less duality there. Okay, it's not completely heaven, obviously, but it's closest thing we can get on earth to heaven. Heaven on earth, the closest thing. Okay, and this is where myself and many are being drawn to go. Some are not ready. Okay, this is the middle ground. This is half artificial, half Garden of Eden. You're in the middle of the two worlds. Middle of nature and technology. Artificial technology, natural technology. The middle. We're stuck in the middle. So some are being drawn to this artificial technology. Others are being drawn to nature and natural technology. Okay? And some are not ready to go either way.
They will stay and enjoy life here on earth for a bit more and experience and change and help with the ages. Eventually, all of this will be heaven on earth when all the toroidal fields are completely spread out and, you know, and one with the main one. This is when it's heaven on earth. This is when we're in the Satya Yuga, in the golden age. But this will happen really, really, really slowly. So you can see the shift. You can feel the shift. You can see what's happening right now with world governments, with world economies, with people questioning. You know, there's a lot of turmoil going on. Everything must, before there's a new birth, the old must die. So it's going to be a very painful process over the next few years. A lot of things that seem negative will happen. A lot of bad things that we might think are bad will happen, but they have to happen because the old has to die for the new to begin. Okay? Because we're getting into a new age now. And these elites, they know this. Okay? And they are shaking in their boots because we're catching up. We're waking up and their consciousness, they're getting dumber, we're getting smarter. Okay? This is why they are trying to destroy everything before they go, because they have to go. They have to go. They cannot withstand this frequency. This frequency is hurting them. This energy being sent from the center is not good for them. They do not like it. This is why they're trying to destroy Europe. You see this whole agenda in Europe with the whole immigration, divide and conquer, black versus white, immigrants versus not immigrants, etc., etc. They're doing that on purpose, divide and conquer, because they want to destroy everything here before they leave. You know, if we can't have it, we want to burn it before we go. And then you can stay behind and rebuild it on your own. That is the agenda, ultimately. And they'll go out to Mars, running away, and eventually they'll be pushed so much out because they're on their way down. And only the good ones, the ones ascending, will be here during the golden age. Okay? So, going back to the cycle of life, once you get to ascend into the messenger, when you're a demigod, you get into the moon, you get into Venus, you do Jupiter, you know, you're doing your time in all of those, you're raising in consciousness. And then after that, you become an angel again, right? You're a shooting star here. Now you're an angel again. You're at 85%, you're ascending. Okay? Now you're influencing things up here. You're a director of everything. You then ascend into there, 90, 95. And then after that, you don't become one with the whole. Now you are free. You exit the cosmic egg through the cosmic highway out into the multiverse. You're now free to explore and experience life in other cosmic eggs, in other experiences, in other worlds, in other universes. Okay? As a free soul, you are free forever. You will never die. Right? You go into another cosmic egg and you have your own experiences in there that are probably totally different to this. Right? And this is the cycle of life. And new souls will be being birthed. They do the cycle, they go out, and this is continuously happening. Cycles of life, of consciousness, of stars. That is what we truly are. We are stars wrapped in skin and flesh and bone, soul, spirit. And even science, quantum science, is starting to realize this now. They're starting to tell us that we're not just flesh and bones. There's a lot more going on. And it's obvious to most people now, I think. Those who are awake know for sure. Okay? And that is the cycle of life. Okay? I hope I was clear, and I hope I wasn't going around in circles. Again, like I said, I'm not saying that everything I'm saying is 100% truth. A lot of it is my own understanding from what I've researched and from what I've learned from other people and from what I'm picking up from, from the universe. It's my interpretation. If you resonate with it, or if you recognize it, or if you remember it, because remember, we are all our own ancestors because we've reincarnated. So this time is normally called the Great Remembrance because we are remembering things we've always known. For those who are tuning to the frequencies, you remember this stuff, this knowledge. Okay? So I feel like I'm remembering this. This feels like a distant memory to me. And I'm remembering it and I'm sharing it with you. And I'm seeing when I speak to people, a lot of people recognize and they go, oh, do you know what? This sounds familiar. It sounds right. I don't know it as fact, but it sounds right because your soul is remembering. You're waking up. So if you resonate with it and you get it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Okay? By the way, I also think that there are souls here on earth right now, right, who are here to help. So perhaps they've ascended already a few times. They may be a few steps ahead. They may be at the moon stage or at the Venus stage or even at the Garden of Eden stage. But they chose to reincarnate and come back here to where we are to help with the shift. These are what a lot of esoteric circles call the starseed children or the indigo children. These special children that are born special in a way, I guess. So these are the children that are here to help ascend the process. There are many people on earth right now who say, I was born and I don't feel like I belong here. I don't feel like I belong in a body. I don't feel like, I feel like I'm here for a reason beyond just living. There's something going on from when they're born. There are many of these people here. And those, many of you listening now will recognize what I'm saying. Okay, I don't think I'm one of them personally. I might be, because I've always had that feeling of there's something more to this, and I had my awakening at the age of 33 last year, and so perhaps I'm one of those souls who chose to come down and help with the ascension process, right? Perhaps I'm on the journey. I incarnated here, and perhaps I've been here, and who knows? But I think there are many things happening with this incarnation. So there are some who've come directly from these outer worlds and have incarnated. These are the new souls, the young souls. They are the old souls who've incarnated many times and who've learned, and they are now ready to move on. There are other souls who've come backwards. They were already ahead. They've now come back and they want to help with the ascension, and then they'll move on spiritually. So maybe they're not even meant to be going to the center at all in physical form. Maybe when they ascend, they are ascending upwards into the moons or whatever spiritually. They're not going to be reincarnating into body in the next life. Okay, so many things going. Personally, I think I'm destined for the center. Okay, I still want to experience life in a physical body, but certainly not in the conditions we're in now. I'm certainly drawn to nature and living in harmony with the animals, with nature, and veganism, and love, and all those things. I'm not drawn to technology and the materialistic things in life. There's nothing wrong with those things. Those who enjoy them, that's fine. But there are many of us who feel more drawn to nature and to that side of things. Okay, and that's my journey. So I think for sure, this is my next incarnation, the center, in physical form. Okay, I just wanted to put that out there. Really quick.
Nice, well done. That was very, very well done. To explain the cosmos in under an hour, you've got to be, you've got to have the whole concept conceptualized. You've got to have it clear, and you've done that. That's brilliant, and you've syncretized lots and lots of different things. You've salvaged, the heliocentric, ridiculous, explanations, but you've found the truth in what they're trying to say and how to explain it properly. Because this is what I do too. For instance, one example, the atom. They tell you there are three things: the neutron, the proton, and the electron, but they don't understand. There are three things, but they don't understand what those three things are, because they're giving it a particle, whereas there are no particles.
Yeah.
You see, so yeah. So, but you can salvage it, because more or less they're aiming in the right direction. It's just that they're never really allowed to explain things completely truthfully. They're just not allowed to, because then we just wake up so quickly. So look, that was really, really well done. I'm glad you recorded it, because I think you should put this up straight away. Give people this. This will give many people a lot of aha moments, all kinds of people. I think it'll give people like the concave earthers something to think about.
Yeah.
Even the square, diamond, rectangular earthers. It's really, really going to give them a lot of inspiration. Now, I do have difficulty with one thing, Venus.
Hi guys, welcome back. Just want to kick off where we left off. I think Santos was about to explain a couple of points that he's picked up on that possibly need to be looked at on this cosmic egg model. But before I continue, I also just want to thank Santos, really. Everything I've presented over the last two presentations, most of the work is stuff that I've ripped off the research Santos has done. So I've hardly done any research. I've been watching a lot of your videos, Santos, and learning off you and learning off the syncretism, and then doing my own bit of research to add on to it. But I just want to give most of that credit to you, really, and say thank you. Yep, the floor's yours.
Thanks, Martin. I really appreciate that. It's good to see that my hard work has gone to to this outcome. It's great to see the influence that it has. Well, what I was thinking of with your model was that Venus should go on the inside of the sun, or where Mercury is, I'm thinking, because they are considered to be personal planets in astrology. You've got to take a lot of astrology into account. So I'm thinking astrologically here, and also the Ptolemaic model. Okay, so Ptolemy clearly says that there's 10 concentric spheres. Prima mobile is the first, then the crystalline sea, then the firmament, then time begins. Chronos, and then he has a sun. Space begins. Jupiter, Mr. Expansion. Then Mars, action. Then the sun, Venus, Mercury, and the moon is the last sphere. So Venus, Mercury, and Moon have always been considered to be subsolar. I think that's the expression. I don't think that's the right expression. But anyway, I'm trying to think of. It'll come to me. So, of course, we've got the plane of the Earth, and we've got. So, Moon is always first, then Mercury, then Venus, and these planets are considered to be what's called the word just won't come. So we've got the sun here, then we've got Mars, Jupiter, then Saturn. Okay, so I can see what you're doing with the moon. It's in with the sun in the second sort of Taurus. You've got them nested. You've got like nested 4 or 5 nested Taurus fields. Okay, isn't that right? 4 or 5.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So I would say, so you put the sun in the second one, yeah?
Yep.
And you put Mars and Venus in the third one.
Yes, yep.
Right.
And
Venus.
Mercury on the inner one, the one at the center, inside us.
Yeah. And you've got rightfully Saturn and Jupiter up here. Now Saturn is 29.5 years in orbit. Moon is 29. Well, actually, let me be more specific because this is very interesting. 29.49, I believe it is. Got to check that one. Again, I'm going, it's late and I'm tired. 29.49, whatever that number is, this is exactly a harmonic of it, or a fractal of it.
Okay.
Now, days. So the Saturn and Moon thing, that's very interesting. I'll get back to that. But then you put the first vortex or nested torus field,
Yeah.
and you put that at the center of the Mount Meru, sort of around the center part of the Earth, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's a problem because Venus's orbit is 225 days, okay? Whereas Mars is 7 days, which is just under 2 years. Jupiter's 12 years, of course. And the Sun, of course, is the 1 year, right?
Yeah.
So it's expressive of sort of a golden ratio, sacred geometric, ratio of these planets, right? Order. Order. So obviously the Moon goes up here with the Sun, yeah? First of all, we get Venus transits, Mercury transits, and Moon transits.
Right.
Called eclipses.
Uh-huh.
So Moon transits are called eclipses, but they are transits because the eclipses can only happen near the nodes, the North Node and the South Node. So they are eclipses. They are transits. It's a transit. The Moon is passing either in front of the Sun or behind the Sun, and the North Node is there. But three things have to come together: either Rahu and Ketu, or North. Well, as we call them in Western system, North Node and South Node. They are always there, present within 4 degrees of the Sun and the Moon, either or, whether it's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, time and time again, consistently, invariably, always. So with Mercury, we can see the transits of Mercury, and they always happen in Taurus, in the middle of May in Taurus, and opposite in the middle of Scorpio, around about November 11th. So May 8th, 9th, 10th, November 8th, 9th, 10th, directly opposite. And the Venus transits happen in Gemini and opposite Sagittarius. So December 10th and Gemini, and June, say 10th, June the 10th or 9th, I think it happened in 2012 and 2005, Venus, both transits were in Gemini, okay, around the 5th of June to the 8th of June. So the big boys, we don't see these transits. So you can see how these guys, definitely Mars belongs to that sphere and Jupiter and Saturn belong to this fourth nested vortex, or there could be just straight out 7 of them, and
Well, this is why, Santos, I was saying on my mod, this is why I was saying that perhaps the suns, or what I call the suns, Saturn, Mars, Apollo, they follow, they run along the actual vortex, whereas the moons, they are in between. They're in an imaginary, on an imaginary path. They're not on the actual, what is it called? The actual vortex. They're in between. So if we were to conjunct them, right? I don't know if it's on me at the moment, the screen.
Yeah, I can. Yes, it is. I can see you.
Okay. So if we were to conjunct all these planets with Polaris, like that, yeah, they would fold into each other, all the different planets. So then you'd have Mercury, Moon, Sun, or Mercury, Moon, Venus. So maybe Venus on its path is actually below the zenith of where the Sun would be at its zenith, at its peak, if everything is conjunct. If everything was conjunct there, it would be Mercury, Moon, then Venus, then the Sun above it at the top, and then you'd have Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So these ones are following that line, whereas these ones are actually in between. They're not actually following the line. They're in between the line. They're on an imaginary eclipse. Imaginary, I said that the suns and the moons behave differently. The suns are following that actual ecliptic path on the torus fields, and the moons are in the imaginary one. So there's another toroidal field that is maybe not as physical. It's more, it's transparent that they follow. So if they're all conjunct along the axis and the sun is at its zenith, then and if you pull the moon in to where the axis is, the moon would fall slightly underneath the sun. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep, I get you. Yeah, what is the reasoning for having Venus outside of the sun? How do you...
Only because I'm trying to understand if Venus was within our toroidal field, surely we should be able to see her more clearly as we see our sun and moon. The reason why we see our sun and moon so clearly is because they're within our toroidal field. So I would imagine that anything outside is why we see them as shimmering luminaries, because we're seeing them beyond our torus field. It's being obstructed by the toroidal field. That's why they look like they're shimmering in water, those suns and moons. It's because of that. So I'm trying to understand if Venus was within our toroidal field, surely we should see her a lot clearly, the same as we see our sun and moon. And if she is, and we don't, then why don't we? If she's within our toroidal field, if she's within our atmospheres, the thermosphere or mesosphere or wherever, surely we should be able to see her a bit more clearly, more often.
Yep, I hear that. I'm just, being an astrologer, I see Venus and Mercury are always near the sun. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Okay. All right, these are some famous people I've got here. Let me see if I remember who. Oh yeah, I know who this one is. Marlon Brando. Okay, Arian. I'm not going to do his I'm just, I will one day. That's why I got these made. But you see Venus and Mercury.
Yep.
And there's the sun. They're always near the sun. Okay.
Okay.
So Mercury can never be more than 28 degrees away from the sun. So he's always, it can only be in the sign of the sun, which in this case he's not, is in the 28th degree of Pisces, and the sun is in the 12th degree of Aries. So they're still only 14 degrees apart from each other. That Mercury can only be another 14 degrees further away from the sun. Venus, 48, okay? So let's have a look at another chart. Who we got here? Elvis Presley. There's his sun, there's Mercury, there's Venus. Again, they're always near. And look, and all the other planets, Mars is way over here, Jupiter. All right, so let's have a look at another one. Who is it? Oh, yeah, this one is. Anyway, I'll forget who it is. But so there's the Sun. There's Mercury. There's Venus. Venus is really, really. She's an evening star, as you can see. The Sun has set.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So in this case, Venus is setting after the Sun has set, obviously. So, but when she's here, she'll be rising in front of the Sun, right, at the ascendant, right? So, but she's behind the Sun now, right? So, but that's about as far as she can be, right? So this is the thing. I always see. Here's another one. There's the Sun. There's Mercury, close to the Sun. There's Venus, forward of the Sun. In this case, Venus was rising first because she would have been about here and the Sun would have been down about there, and then she's up here like that. There they are now. So she's forward of the Sun. So, but that's about as far as you'll ever see Venus. She can only be 48 degrees away from the Sun. So seeing this, what you're seeing is as the Sun just keeps going like this.
Yeah.
On the ecliptic, right ascending.
Yeah.
On its azimuth.
Yeah.
You see, what's happened is you've got Mercury will come along like this. Well, I'll have to go slower. Sorry. So you've got Sun.
Yeah.
Going, and then Mercury will be doing this. Retrograding. Retrogressing. And then Venus will be doing more like this. So start over here.
Yeah.
Venus will be going like this. Retrogressing. So they're always. So you've got Sun and Mercury will always be there, 28 degrees. Venus will always be 48. Now, that's why you've got the transits. See, so this is why Venus really has to be this side of the Sun, inside the Sun from our perspective.
So is it possible that maybe Venus and the Sun are both orbiting along our Taurus field, in our Taurus field? Because it still doesn't explain why we don't see Venus as clearly as we should. Because now what I'm seeing by what you've just said, you've just clarified something for me there.
No, we'll see. I don't.
When you show that movement of Mercury that Mercury makes, that's because Mercury at the center, obviously, has got a shorter circuit to make. Okay, so Mercury's circuit is much shorter. Hence, you'd see that movement that you're talking about, that retrograde movement, because, you know, Mercury's circuit is so much shorter than any of the other rings because it's the smallest toroidal field. Okay, it's the smallest circuit. And the moon, if the moon is just here in between, so let's say the Sun is here on this toroidal field, right? I'm putting the moon literally just after the Sun. I mean, Venus just after the Sun, literally just behind. And maybe she's moving at a similar speed to the Sun, or, you know, picking up and dropping off with the Sun. So maybe Venus, she follows the Sun quite closely as she orbits around her imaginary orbit, just after our toroidal field. Not as far as Mars, who's actually on the chariot of the toroidal field on the outside. So Mars is further, whereas Venus is closer to our toroidal field than the outer toroidal field.
Yep.
That's how I'm. So when you were showing those movements, I saw that straight away. And that was an aha moment for me. Because if you look at it from this perspective, right, you've got Mars, who's pretty much running along this toroidal field, the outer one, okay? We've got the sun on our toroidal field, and Venus would be close to the sun. If the sun is here, Venus is just behind the sun, closer to our Van Allen belt than the outer one. And then you've got Mercury at the center, obviously because she's at the center and his orbit is much smaller. Naturally, she would look like she's following the sun more because there's less of a gradient for them to make up. Because it's a smaller toroidal field.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'd have to sort of draw it all out and think about it and ponder it. But it's possible. I mean, no one has ever been able to nut out the heavens perfectly.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're talking about it, So, but you have to thrash it out.
Yeah.
And put it on the drawing board properly. See, if the sun is doing daily circles, then that year is not actually one loop. It's 365 loops.
Yeah.
How it would work. So you'd have the North Pole and you'd have, say, Earth is like that. All right, so there's a North Pole. I was supposed to do it. No, I didn't want to do it this way. Anyway, I'll keep going. So this is Cancer, Equator, and Capricorn. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The tropics.
Yep.
And of course, we've got Antarctica out here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so now from the side, of course, what we're dealing with is if that's the Earth, and this is the North Pole in the center,
Uh-huh.
and the Sun will be doing something like that at Cancer,
Yep.
and something like this at Capricorn,
Uh-huh.
and then something like this at the Equator.
Yes.
So you've got ramping up and down of the Sun.
Yep.
But the Sun is doing 365 of these.
Uh-huh.
So Venus, so the point is Venus okay. So yeah, well Venus does 225. So what you've got then is you've got, say, on December 21st, the Sun hits the Tropic of Cancer, Capricorn, and Australia will be down here, say, like that. And then 3 months later, gets to the equator, and that'll be March 21st, the equinox. 3 months later, it gets to Cancer, June 21st. Solstice, summer solstice. And Europe is, well, it's all on, it's all inside there. So you've got, all right, the northern. Then on the way back down, 3 months later, That'll be September 23rd. So equinox, solstice, solstice.
Mm-hmm.
So if the sun is out here at the Tropic of Capricorn,
Yep.
in December, and then it's over here in June at the solstice, and that's 6 months there, and that's 6 months there. So it's doing 365 of these every year, and Mercury and Jupiter and Venus.
Okay.
No, okay, so Mercury and Venus.
So Mercury is at the center, the North Pole. So Mercury is within that first ring. That's Mercury's transit in there.
But Mercury is here. Sun is out here. Moon is also here too, yeah? The limit of the sun, yeah? The limit of the sun does not go out here. So if that's the Tropic of Capricorn and you're over here in Melbourne, and they say that the sun is rising south of east, right? So it's rising even more than the Tropic of Capricorn and the equator, which will be somewhere around here, actually. So that's what they're saying about that. But I mean, we're talking about electromagnetic phenomena in the fourth dimension. You know, we've got it's like the sun is a personal objective projection. You know, that is operating in laws that we just we can't really comprehend for a start, because I mean, even the quantum physicists, there's nothing that they can tell you that conclusively that is a scientific fact, because they're also telling you always that they're theorizing, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they have never concluded anything. I mean, Copernicus was theorizing about his revolution. He says, look, please don't take this as absolute fact. It's only useful for explaining certain phenomena, you know, which means from one, explaining the relationship between two observed movements in the heavens, for instance, right? So it explains that. He says it's useful for that, but it's not a true model. Same with Newton. Newton was always stressing that it's hypothetical what he's doing, and the hypothesis and the theory and what if, you know. So, but okay, well, let's get back to this then. So we've got three objects here. Mercury, always inside the tropics. He never comes out to the tropics, yeah?
Yeah.
Never comes from there to there.
No.
Okay, so Mercury's always around here. And then you've got Sun and Moon. This makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. Okay, to me, right? But to have Venus out here with Mars in the third Taurus field, nested. Did you say there were 4 or 5? Sorry.
There are 4 inner ones. What I was saying was that if that is our Taurus field, okay, and the sun is either on it or just inside the Taurus field and running along it on the spiral like that, which is why we see the sun, because it's just inside or it's on it, I'm saying Venus would be just on the other side, touching it. They're pretty much almost touching, just divided by the Taurus field. So they're quite close to one another. Okay? And then the next Taurus field is here, and this is where Mars would be, out here on the next toroidal field. So technically, Venus and Mars are in the same jurisdiction, Sun and Moon, but Venus is very close to Apollo. they're almost following the same path. They're always together because they're just on the other side of our toroidal field, and the sun is just on the other side. That's the affair that Apollo and Aphrodite are having in Greek mythology. And Mars was jealous of Aphrodite having an affair with Apollo. That's because they follow the same path. When in actual fact, Mars and Aphrodite should be together because they're the sun and moon of these outer lands together. That's how I've reconciled it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's lovely. Now, for me, I have to astrologically see how that works, you know. So,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course, we know with the heliocentric model, the year orbit of the sun, or well, they say it's the Earth, of course, orbiting around the sun. So there is a one revolution, even though they say the Earth is rotating 24 hours, so 365 rotations around the Earth goes orbiting around the sun. So there is a one, you know,
Yeah.
one revolution there. Whereas we're dealing with, so June,
Yep.
September, December, and then it winds back in.
Yep.
So the sun's torus field is like a breathing, expanding, compressing from tropic to tropic. So knowing this, it's easier to fit Venus into that outer ring.
Yeah.
With Mars, because now we see that Venus is also going around daily along with the sun. Has to be.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So this 225-year a day other cycle that's going on, which we call an orbit of Venus, which it is not an orbit of Venus.
Yeah.
That must have to do with, it just has to do with where Venus goes from evening to morning star. It's just, she has to retrogress.
Yeah.
You know, so she advances in front of the sun 48 degrees when she's direct. Then she retrogresses and she's behind the sun 48 degrees. Then she's going direct again. And then she'll be advancing in front of the sun 48 degrees. Then she'll go stationary. Then she has to retrogress. So she's doing this in a pattern with the sun. It's like a...
almost like a pendulum.
Well, yeah, or like an epicycle,
yeah.
I was going to say.
That's it.
Like an epicycle.
Yeah.
So she's also doing the same thing as the sun every day, but it's variable speed that she's just doing that. So as the sun's cruising along this way.
Yeah.
And as you said, this is 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah. Give or take. Yeah.
So Venus is outside here, not in this part of the vortex. She's in a second nested torus field. And so what she'll be doing is she'll be advancing like this. She's going faster than the sun, then she'll go stationary. The sun's always going the same pace.
Yes.
Always marking the same time.
Yeah.
Venus will be going like that.
Yep.
And then the sun will be here and then she'll go back here. But she's not actually, well, yeah, she is physically going back. But that's cool because wherever the sun is, she will always be around the same area, you know. She'll be doing this,
yeah,
following following the sun, more or less, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, the other thing is,
That's beautiful, Santos. That's beautiful. Yeah.
well, yeah. The other thing is, you say that if Venus were in our vortex, then we should see her as brilliant as the sun. I don't know about that, because look at the moon. The moon's the same size as the sun, yes. I think originally, yes, they. Originally, at their I guess at the focal point where they project onto.
Yeah.
I think they're more or less all the same planets size, because remember the pictures of the 21st of August eclipse?
Yeah.
And whatever it was that passed in front of the sun, well, actually, no, the one that was the year before, the March 20 on the equinox of 2015, that eclipse happened in conjunction with Ketu, the south node.
Right.
And you saw like these little beads of condensed water in the sky, you know, like drops of water passing in front of the sun, causing the eclipse.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, and we saw the same thing with the August 21st eclipse.
Yeah.
You see the sun like that, and then you definitely see something covering it like that, but from other angles, people saw something like that going past the sun, and as soon as it got in the center, it created the eclipse.
Yeah.
So the sun is a source projection, a source objective projection, right? So the center of the sun is probably just like a really, well, it'd have to be much smaller than the body that we see, we call.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're all about that size, right? And then this expanded disk that we see glowing and that has its limit. See, like the sun for me is like a condensed rainbow, right? The sun causes the rainbow. The sun is made up of white light, which is incoherent white light, and the 7 refracted colors of the white light of the sun, which are the electromagnetic spectrum, Snow White, and the 7 dwarfs. So that's just like a coiled. Well, they say it's a serpent. Yeah, it's Quetzalcoatl, the rainbow serpent, according to the Aboriginals. Well, that's the rainbow, isn't it? But it's condensed. Yeah. So this, what we see here is the sun. That's an electrical effect. Yeah, it has to be.
Absolutely.
You're putting the moon in the same as the same thing as well, like a projection, as you were saying. The moon pretty much has that same reputation as well. So you're not actually, what you're seeing is not actually what is actually there. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same with the moon, because the moon is the same diameter or circumference as the sun. So possibly Venus, if we saw her in the same context as we see the sun, it would probably appear like this as well. So you're saying, obviously, the reason why those planets are like stars, wandering stars, is because they all belong to the other 3 concentric nested torus fields that make up this big Anu, which is actually what the word is. Anu. That's what one of the words for the torus field, the original. So, and of course, this has got Uranus.
Yeah. Of course, yes. Ha.
All right. Yep. And Uranus is the firmament. We know that.
Yep.
Uranus had a son, and his name was Kronos.
Yes.
Kronos castrated his father Uranus.
Uh-huh.
Right. Well, Kronos is
That's it.
temp.
Yep. Yep.
So let's just call him what he is. Time.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then time beget some children that he swallowed.
Uh-huh.
That's what time does. Time begets children, and then they die, and you get swallowed up
Yeah.
back out of the time matrix again. Well, then that's the son of Saturn is Jupiter, or son of Kronos
Yeah.
in the Greek is Zeus.
Uh-huh.
So that would be space, because good old Jupiter in astrology is what? Expansion, expansiveness.
Uh-huh.
So you got time. So that is the Trinity, and Uranus, Anu, is this magnetic vortex. Vortex. I was going to say firmament, but it's firmament is not as general as I would call it. Generally, it's an Anu, multi-dimensional
Uh-huh.
electromagnetic torus body. Why I say multi-dimensional is because, well, there you've just described 4 dimensions, haven't you?
Yeah.
Each torus is a dimension.
Yeah.
So you'd be suggesting that Venus and Mars in that 3rd torus field,
Yeah.
that'd be they are in another dimension. In fact, they are.
Yeah.
That's what Ptolemy says, that these they are spiritual bodies and entirely luminous and conscious beings. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, something that I've been trying to figure out is, where does Rhea come into this? Who's Rhea in Greek mythology? What would that be?
Well, Rhea is the wife of Kronos, yeah?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And the mother of Zeus, Jupiter Zeus,
Yes.
which is Jesus, exactly. That's who it is. And you can know this because Rhea becomes Mother Maria,
Uh-huh.
and her husband Saturn, Kronos, Set becomes Seth, father Seth, and mother Rhea. So Saturn and Rhea beget a son, Jesus. And so it's the same story. Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. And again, Kronos was the the foster father, wasn't he, of Zeus, because he didn't bring him up.
Yes.
It's the same story.
So Santos, so would Rhea be the name that would Rhea be the name of the 4th toroidal field?
Well,
would that be the name of?
Look at the name, brother. Look at the name. Rhea is
area. Ah, right.
She's also great.
Yeah.
She's also our mother who art great, who is great in heaven. She's also the bread, the cereals. Whoops. Rhea, bread, because time and space, Saturn and area, tempo and area.
Yeah.
See, Jupiter fills the same. Jupiter fills the same boots as Rhea because
Yep.
Jupiter is expansion.
Yeah.
It always works like that because what happens now is this is grandpa, this is daddy, and this is the son, and now Zeus, Jupiter, Jesus becomes, the god of gods and the savior of men in Christianity, but in Greek he's the god of gods, right? Well, because he defeats time. He castrated his daddy because this guy castrated his daddy, right? So how does Jupiter do that? Well, he thwarts that power out of. He was the one that thwarted being swallowed by Kronos.
That is amazing, Santos, because when I was doing the whole solar ascension thing on my model, I put Saturn as the portal in for souls. When souls are descending into the cycle of life, the first place you come into is Saturn, like we're saying, Father Time. That's when time starts. And I said on this side, feminine energies, these are the portals out. So souls ascending upwards, they go through the moon, then through Venus, then through Jupiter. Jupiter is the last one in the fourth dimension before you enter the heavens. So defeating time. Jupiter, you're defeating time. You're now leaving time. And that's where that mythology comes in. When you get into Saturn, you're now in time. You're coming into time. When you're leaving Jupiter and ascending upwards, you're now defeating time. You're back into timeless form.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
Jupiter, yeah, it's Peter and Paul. You rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Paul is Saturn,
Yeah.
and Peter, Jupiter. You must understand this. There's this motif of Peter and Paul, and Mary, Peter, Paul, and Mary. But the Peter and Paul is Jupiter and Saturn because of this Trinity. Okay,
Yeah.
This is the beginning of everything, the origin of all things. The heavens. Uranus means heaven.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is our spiritual daddy, and then time is born of Uranus. And so time castrates no time, essentially, or the forever now. So time is now wanting to have 3 tenses instead of 1 tense. All right, so that's the principle of time. And then because time swallows everything up, in order for things to exist without being swallowed up the instant they are born, you need the principle of Jupiter. So Jupiter is a principle. It's a universal principle.
Okay.
Just as Saturn is. It's the principle of spaciousness, volume. And that's why he's associated with Vulcan. Volcanoes produce volume because they are magnetic. Magnetism is totally responsible for what we call space, volume. So Jupiter is Volcan, volume, and he is space, as so is Rhea. You have to look at the roots of the words, and you've got to know the archetypes. It's always these two twins or trinities. It's always tightly connected to a trinity or a duality, twins. Okay, so so one is a malefic, Saturn, greater malefic, because time, we have to defeat time, man. We've got to go into the eternal forever now, rather than being lost in the past and anxious about the future.
Yeah.
And never settled in the now. Why don't we just eliminate all that regret of the past, anxiety for the future, and discombobulation of not knowing who we are, why we are, where we are, ever in the now. We can get rid of all of that by reabsorbing these principles of time and space, because see this, all of this is frequency. Yeah, frequency is time. It's all vibration. Yeah.
Yep.
And frequency. So you've got a sine wave, and so here you've got space, wave amplitude, and here you've got time, wavelength. This is vibration and frequency, you see. So time, Saturn's marking time, and Jupiter is making space for the time to manifest in. So they are father and son. They castrate each other. It's just like Cain kills Abel. Isaac tries to kill Esau. They're not killing each other literally,
Yeah.
because it's not. It's talking about this. One brother has to kill the other brother. You know, positive must kill negative, otherwise it can't go back to be positive again. And they're changing natures, flipping over. Radharani and Krishna, you know, Mary and Jesus, and it's all basically just the yin and the yang. And you've got source light and force light. And so I forget the point I was making, but anyway, I think I finished what I wanted to say. So that principle, that is the principle. So having Saturn and Jupiter on the outside ring makes a lot of sense, because Saturn is the beginning of all things. All things begin in Saturn. But then they say all things begin in Jupiter, because Jupiter is air. Well, air is hot and moist.
Yeah.
And hot and moist are the two benefic humours of Jupiter. So, whereas Saturn is cold and dry, so time, it's cold and dry, man. There's no doubt about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Space is hot and moist.
Yeah.
And those are the humours of Saturn, of the greater malefic. Whatever is dry and cold cannot grow. Plants can't grow in the dryness if they're dry, nor if they are cold. They need Jupiter, which is the two good humours, which are heat and moisture, right? So, and that you see how heat creates expansion, whereas coldness contracts.
So is that also reminiscent of the toroidal fields breathing in and out, creating the ages? So when the torus fields are outwards, that is the expansion, is it, as you're saying? And then when they come back in, and we're in the dark age of consciousness, this is when Saturn is ruling cold and dry time.
Yeah,
So during the golden ages, Jupiter is king. Jupiter is the one ruling the energy. And during the darker ages of consciousness, when all the toroidal fields have closed everything in, this is when Saturn is ruling.
Yeah. Saturn is the contracting in breath.
Yeah.
And Jupiter is the expanding out breath. And the Taurus field is always doing this. Hence, you have the tides of the ocean. You have the earth heaving and then resting and heaving. The earth is always. I learnt this when I was selling a house, new home salesman. I did that for 4 years. And you had to go out and do testing the ground, the soil, the quality of the soil. Was it A soil? Was it B? And all different grades of soil to build on. So to build a new, how much to put in the foundations. Yeah. And but I learnt about this heaving. You see, certain soils heave a lot in the summer and in the summer.
Yeah.
In the winter with all the moisture. And then in the summer they withdraw, and so the house can get cracked. It can crack with certain kind of soils. So this is the breath. Everything is breathing, you see. And Saturn is the principle of everything coming back to oneness and contracting. Hence, Saturn is strict, stern, disciplined, has boundaries, clear boundaries. Right, whereas Jupiter is expansive, loose, and the opposite. So it's always Peter and Paul.
So right now, as we speak, as we say, we're on the upward cycle of consciousness. Jupiter is on her way to taking over from Saturn, basically.
Yep.
That's a good way to put it, right?
Well, Jupiter's never going to defeat Saturn or vice versa.
Yeah, they work in tandem, obviously, breathing in and out, like you're saying.
Yep.
But now the breath is going outward, isn't it? Whereas we were breathing inward consciously, we're now breathing outward consciously. We're now expanding, heading towards the golden age, so to speak, of openness, of no toroidal fields, no, we're all one, the whole Mandala, all the worlds, we're all connected, we're all one, open.
Yep. Yeah. So Saturn was the ruler of the golden ages, not Jupiter. Jupiter caused all the 4 seasons, according to Virgil. Yeah.
So it's the other way around.
No, it's correct how you had it. I have to add this to it because you have to understand that what you said is correct. Yes, but in another modality, it's the other way around. Depends on which modality. Okay, so yeah, Saturn. When Jupiter castrated Saturn, the golden age ceased and the 4 seasons began. Okay, because that expansion of Jupiter unbalanced the ages. Okay, but in another modality, Jupiter is the finer one. He is the greater benefic and Saturn is the greater malefic. So Jupiter is the one that you go to St. Peter at the pearly gates. See, if you look at the, it's interesting, I'm going to do a show on this. This is the Dendera stone of Egypt.
Okay.
Now, on here, there are all the 48 original constellations, starting at Aries, just as I do all my maps, all my charts. Cancer, Libra, there's the scales. You can see the green scales there. All the green ones in here.
Yep.
Okay, all these green ones. So there's Libra, right there where I have my Libra always. Virgo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries. Now, they've got all of these deacons, 36 deacons. So I'm going to do a presentation on this showing that this was around for thousands and thousands of years, and all these signs are exactly the same as the modern ones today. No difference at all. Not a bit of difference. The only discrepancy is a couple of the deacons of Libra. I can't seem to find them on the Dendera stone, but all the rest, they're all there, all right, intact. So this absolutely smashes these guys who say that the Greeks added Libra 2,000 years ago. Well, this is more than 5,000 years old, and there's Libra, you know, and certain deacons and certain things were added. Well, this is the oldest, and it's the same. It's exactly the same as the Ptolemy system. Ptolemy actually gives us a list of the 48 constellations, the 36 extra zodiacal deacons, and the 12 zodiacal. Now, I forget why I pulled this out. I was going to say something. Can you bring me back to the subject? Why did I come to this?
Saturn and Jupiter, we were explaining the ages. We were saying that Jupiter was expansive, of course, and Saturn was restricting. But I must say, Martin, the restriction is also sometimes needed in the sense of how you understand Saturn in the sense, because as I said, he gets a lot of bad vision and, of course, everyone, you know, it's a Satan thing and everything else, blah, blah, blah. But he is also a needed and can also be a gift in many ways if you actually understand sometimes what these planets are representing.
Yeah.
And that's that trinity there that Santos was pointing out, just the Jupiter and the Saturn, the two planets together. Man, that's like the mother lode of all astrotheology. That those two together, they really do sing in so many areas.
When you understand that, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter. Now I remember why I pulled this out. At the bottom here, at the Tropic of Cancer, Saturn rules in winter. He rules Capricorn and Aquarius. So he's always down the bottom, down in hell, where Satan is supposed to be, always here, ruling these 60 degrees of the ecliptic, from the Tropic of Capricorn all the way to the 20th of February, from the 21st of December, that there. And here, this is where all the good stuff happens in Sagittarius, who is ruled by Jupiter. So you see, Sagittarius and Jupiter, this is the ninth sign, the ninth heaven. And so Jupiter is Peter, Saint Peter, at the pearly gates. So when you actually, all the ancients and the Neoplatonists said that the souls incarnate at the Tropic of Cancer, come through into the solar system, at the Tropic of Cancer, and that's where the moon rules, and leave at the rings of Saturn at the Tropic of Capricorn. But just before Saturn gets his rulership here in Capricorn and Aquarius, Saint Peter, Jupiter, is here in heaven at the pearly gates. This is where you go to the ninth heaven, to Jupiter's sign. And the deacons, interesting that the deacons of Sagittarius, one of them's called the harp, lyra, with Vega in it. Lyra is, in other words, a guitar.
Yeah.
So what do you see people doing at the gates of near the pearly gates in heaven? You see them playing a harp.
Yeah.
And then there's another deacon called Ara, which is an altar. And it's called the censer, or the incense holder or vessel. And this is where Zeus, Jupiter, offered incense on the altar to the gods when just before he was going to defeat Kronos, his father, and the Titans. So the Olympians, they offered at the altar, Ara, in heaven, they Zeus, Jupiter, before he defeated, Jesus, Juice. I like that, Juice. You worship a juice, you're Jesus. So you see, here we have all the themes. Sagittarius, this is also in astrotheology. Sagittarius is the Garden of Gethsemane and the Mount of Olives, because Sagittarius rules the back of your head here, where you have two olives. And this is the Mount of Olives because it's high up in your body, you see. So and Draco is the third deacon of Sagittarius, and Draco is the dragon or the devil. And what does Jesus encounter in the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives? The devil.
Devil, yeah.
You see, so all of these deacons and the whole story of Sagittarius and the rulership of Jupiter, just before the sun hits the Tropic of Capricorn, where Saturn begins on the 21st of December, just before that is where all the heavenly action occurs. And that's what the ancients say, that through the arrow of the Sagittarian, you send your wishes and you send your hopes, and you are saved by that deliverer. He is the delivering sign. It's called the delivering sign. So when you get to know all this, I've got so much information that I'm going to take out of this, showing that what they're describing here is the 48 constellations. They are the 48 organs in your body. Okay. Aries is the cerebrum, right?
Wow.
Leo is the heart. So they're describing, explaining, and modeling field mechanics. It's Taurus field energy. They're describing it. They're modeling how it works, and they're telling you where all the positions of the 36 deacons are indicating what archetypal archetypal energies are found as the vortex does its cycles, and so in every wave and in every field, when energy is traveling through the field, it does this. This is what the Egyptians are telling us here. They didn't make the ecliptic and the constellations, and they didn't design any of this. This is how things work. This is like a blueprint of things that how energy actually works. This is the
Original quantum mechanics. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way to model, because what you're doing, see, with your model, you've got 4 nested torus fields. Well, have a look at an atom. Don't they have different rows of electrons? You've got the first one, the shell. Yeah. How many shells do they have? 10? Or they have about 4 shells, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see, they tell you that an atom, right? Let's say carbon.
It's just about to cut off. We're running out of time. About 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Might have to reloop.
It's up to you. Do we need to keep going?
No, can we schedule another time? Because I've got to work in 15 minutes.
Yes.